say, kids, what time is it?
Coming to America and SpongeBob SquarePants, Sponge on the Run.
I'm ready.
Here we go. Hey, Geek Timers, how are you? This is Keith here. I just want to share some of my thoughts about this weekend's debuts of Coming to America. That's different from Coming to America because this one is Coming to America. And the new SpongeBob movie, Sponge on the Run, both of which debuted on their streaming services, Amazon Prime and Paramount Plus, respectively. We'll start with Coming to America. You know, if you were a tween or a teen like I was in the 1980s, you grew up with Eddie Murphy. And in a span of 5 or 6 years, Eddie Murphy had hit after hit, starting with 48 Hours, Trading Places, Beverly Hills Cop, the not as good but still serviceable Beverly Hills Cop 2, and ultimately Coming to America. The original Coming to America was a fairy tale. It was a modern day fairy tale, taking that the sociological idea of arranged marriages and a hierarchy of a kingdom of a royalty, and it followed the story of Hakim, who was heir to the throne of Zamunda, and he did not want to honor his arranged marriage, decided to come to America to quote unquote sow his royal oats, and met and fell in love with someone who was pure of heart and equal to him in every way intellectually. So it was a great movie. Well done, directed by John Landis, story by Eddie Murphy, and written by David Sheffield. And we fast forward to 32 years later, our time, 30 years later in the film, Coming to America, swapping out the TO for the number 2, denoting the sequel, of course. And to me, it suffers from what every sequel that has waited this long suffers from, and that's that they just can't seem to recapture the magic that was there the first time around. This happened with the Dumb and Dumber sequel as well, where they had about 20 years in between, and there are moments where it feels right, and then there are moments where it doesn't. And I think before I kind of go into this, I'm going to try to avoid spoilers. I just kind of want to give an overview and my general thoughts on the subject, but this movie was directed by Craig Brewer, this sequel, and he's known for movies like Hustle and Flow and Tarzan. So, not to knock his abilities, but I don't think that he's cut out for comedy. Clearly you're doing a comedy here, and you've got someone who makes action movies and gangster movies, setting the tone. Eddie Murphy didn't work on the story either. David Sheffield did, and I'm wondering if the pieces of the screenplay that were punched up by Sheffield were the parts that felt most like the original. So anyway, let's get into it. When we last left Hakim and Lisa, they were married and they moved back to Zamunda to rule as king and queen. And that's kind of where we pick up 30 years later. There's a McDowell's now in Zamunda. And the beginning is great because we get to quickly get reintroduced to all the characters that we loved from the first one. John Amos is back as Cleo, the owner of Cleo McDowell, the owner of McDowell's. And it's always great to see John Amos because, again, I grew up with the show Good Times, and John Amos was a staple of my childhood. And I love anything he's in because John Amos is one of those actors that just feels like somebody you know. He feels like a guy next door. He doesn't really come off as an actor playing a role so much as someone you're awfully familiar with and comfortable with. So I've always enjoyed watching John Amos in anything. Even when he plays bad guys, I enjoy him. Louis Anderson, of course, is back, reprising his role as the employee at McDowell's. The name escapes me right now. James Earl Jones, the legend, of course, reprises his role as the king of Zamunda. And King Joffrey. King Joffrey. He looks like he had fun in this scene. He really goes way over the top and chews the scenery quite a bit. There's a great bit for him, and because he's 90 years old, they found a clean way to kind of get him in and out of the movie without taxing him. Of course, Sherry Headley returns as the lovely Lisa McDowell, and Paul Bates is back as Oho. So basically, we get everybody back except for people who have passed away from the first one, such as Madge Sinclair, who played the Queen Joffrey in the first movie. And Arsenio Hall, of course, returns as Semi and a handful of other characters. And of course, Eddie as Hakeem and a handful of other characters as well. And new to this one is Wesley Snipes, and he is a general of a neighboring town or village, and he wants to bring peace to the land by his daughter would marry the son of Hakim Joffrey, and uphold the traditions of Zamunda. The problem is Hakim only has 3 daughters, and he learns from his father and Semi that there is an illegitimate son in America that he had when he first went over and had a tryst that he was not aware of. And what I really liked here is they figured out a way digitally to alter a bit of the first movie to insert this little plot point. Leslie Jones, back in 1988, actually had a one-night stand with Prince Hakim, and it's very clever the way they do that. So Hakim has to go back to America to try to find his illegitimate son. And here we meet his son, played by Jermaine Fowler, and his uncle, played by the great Tracy Morgan, who's always fun to watch as well. I'm glad they found a way to get Tracy Morgan into this. So, you find out that he's a bright kid, but he can't catch a break. He's scalping tickets with his uncle to get by. And here's kind of where the movie, for me, started to lose its appeal. It becomes an inverse of the first movie in a way, and you don't get the fairy tale aspect that the first one had. And as the movie wears on, you start to find out that Hakeem, Eddie Murphy's character, has more or less fallen into the mindset of the traditions of Zamunda. And instead of being that free thinking kid who wanted to be his own person, he's very much into that old school misogynist, patriarchal kind of a mindset. And it kind of flies in the face of his character. The other thing I didn't really like so much about the film is that we don't get enough of Arsenio Hall and Eddie Murphy being Hakeem and Semi, and the charm that they brought to the first movie. This movie more or less follows Jermaine Fowler's character, Lavelle, and his wrestling with does he marry Wesley Snipes' daughter and uphold the tradition and become king of Zamunda, or does he go with his heart and the woman he falls in love with instead? And that's where it gets bogged down. There's a lot of musical montages. There's a lot of scenes that don't really go anywhere as he wrestles with his feelings and slowly falls in love. It started to lose me. I actually started dozing off 2 or 3 times in the middle. It gets very, very slow, very, very predictable. You saw where it was going right in the beginning with the 3 daughters, and I won't give away the ending, but let's just say that has a lot to play in it. And, there's some heartwarming moments. Everything with Eddie Murphy is great, of course. The scene where he goes back to John Amos for some advice on what to do, because he clearly realizes he's been mishandling the situation from the beginning, getting caught up in these ancient traditions. And that's a great scene. But other than that, it kind of bogs down and it grinds. It does the cheap and easy thing where it goes back to jokes from the first movie, which feel old, recycled, and don't land as well as the first one. But, anytime these two are on screen, it's magic, whether they're playing Hakeem and Semi or any other character. If this came out in a theater, I probably would be really upset with it because I paid money and was bored for the most part. As nice as it is to see Eddie Murphy back on the big screen. But because it's on Amazon Prime, and if you're a Prime member, it's free, it's worth a watch on a rainy Saturday afternoon, but I wouldn't go much past that. If you really want to watch Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall shine as these characters and the rest of the cast as well, which was a phenomenal cast, just watch the first one again. I think John Landis really stuck the landing on the first one. It captured the feeling of a fairy tale and had plenty of comedy to take it along. And the journey of Akeem in the first one is so much more heartwarming than his struggles in this one. And then watching Lavelle basically take the mantle as Akeem and go through the same process just felt tired and recycled and uninspired. So those are my thoughts on Coming to America. This weekend, early first weekend in March also had the debut of Paramount Plus on March 4th, which is just CBS All Access recycled under a different name. I signed up for a free trial using another email address since I had canceled CBS Plus after being appalled watching the new Star Treks. And I got to tell you, it hasn't changed at all from CBS All Access. There's really not much to watch on here. It's got a few things that I might check out before my free trial's over, but I'm not paying for this service whatsoever. So with the debut came a direct to streaming now SpongeBob movie, Sponge on the Run. This would be the third SpongeBob movie following 2004's SpongeBob SquarePants movie and 2015's SpongeBob movie Sponge Out of Water. And I think what made this one sort of appealing is the fact that they stuck with the 3D animation that worked so well in the second one. At least it was appealing enough anyway. This one did not work for me. I watched this with little junior GeekTime and my little girl, and we were both excited for this for over a year as we waited for it to come to theaters. I'm really glad I didn't pay for this. The basic story is that we find out SpongeBob and Gary have been together since childhood. They met at summer camp. But meanwhile, lurking undersea here is King Poseidon. Now, King Poseidon looked and sounded an awful lot like King Neptune from the first SpongeBob movie. And much like in the first one, where King Neptune could not accept his baldness, King Poseidon is so superficial that if he gets a pimple or a wrinkle, he takes a snail and uses the snail as an anti-aging cream. The solution that the slime from the snail, basically rubs it all over his face, and he just burns through snails until they're useless, and he disposes of them. So it comes down to there's one snail that left, and it's Gary. There's a subplot where Plankton, of course, is trying to steal the secret patty formula, and he invents this robot, and the robot is part of the reason Gary gets abducted. And the robot is also kind of featured throughout as it chauffeurs SpongeBob and Patrick as they go on the road looking for Gary. Along the way, they're met by Sage, played by Keanu Reeves, who's also a ball of sage. That's pretty much the level of the humor in this movie. And I think what bothers me the most is that the television show, SpongeBob SquarePants, is really funny. It's really well written. It's clever, especially the early seasons. And I can sit there and watch that with my daughter for hours and laugh. These three SpongeBob movies don't seem to be able to capture that. And I don't know if it's because it's longer form. The first SpongeBob movie in 2004 was actually directed by Steven Hillenburg, the creator of SpongeBob, and it was written by a lot of the people from the TV show. The second movie was directed by a guy named Paul Tibbett, who also was part of the TV show. And this third one is directed by Tim Hill, who I believe is now also part of the TV show. But the TV show's gotten long in the tooth, much like The Simpsons and Family Guy and anything else that's overstayed its welcome past 2 decades. And it just doesn't have any of the cleverness or the subversive humor that the TV show does. So, they're constantly getting advice from Sage on what to do. And of course, being SpongeBob and Patrick, they tend to do the complete opposite. They get caught up in temptations and traps. There are some nice cameos. For instance, they meet Snoop Dogg along the way. But they end up in a casino owned by Poseidon. And while they're tracking Gary. Meanwhile, of course, his friends at home, the Krusty Krab's failing because SpongeBob's not there. They decide to go on the hunt for him. Plankton kind of spills his guts. So they go off looking for SpongeBob, following the trail. All roads lead to Poseidon's casino, where Poseidon gets entertained every night by a talent show, which gets infiltrated by our friends from Bikini Bottom, in which they do a kangaroo court kind of trial on SpongeBob for trying to re-abduct Gary. And this is where we find out that all his friends, they all met at Camp Coral, and they've been friends for their life. And their heartwarming stories break Poseidon's heart. He decides to reveal his true self, which is an aging, flabby, dad bod, balding old man. He comes to peace with himself, gives Gary back to SpongeBob. They return to Bikini Bottom and live happily ever after. So another one that if this came out in the theater and I spent, $20, $30, $40 on tickets and snacks, I would have been really upset. Some of these things belong on streaming. In both cases, Coming to America and SpongeBob, Sponge on the Run, they both suffer from what a lot of entertainment these days suffer from, which is really bad, lazy, safe writing. They're safe. In the case of Coming to America, where they try to kind of go against the current identity politics or intersectional feminism, they'll make a joke about it, but quickly retract the joke, playing it safe. So both of these are bland, dull entertainment. If you're doing nothing on a rainy Saturday and you feel like watching these, that's fine. I'm not going to tell you to watch them or not watch them. I'm just kind of saying that they're both bland, they're both dull, they're both safe. And in the case of the SpongeBob movie, it does not work at all. You're better off just watching reruns of the television show. So that's it. I will be back soon with my thoughts on the Superman and Lois show. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share any of our videos. It only helps the channel grow. And you all have a great day, evening, morning, wherever you are, and we will talk to you soon. If you like this video, please subscribe to the channel. If you subscribe, make sure you click the little bell icon to be notified anytime someone from our show drops new content here. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.
Say, kids, what time is that?